So, Sean, you mentioned the Typhoons. The British Typhoons were used, the fighter jets. Up until then, we'd relied, we and the US and others had relied on, missiles, remote attack through missiles, so no humans involved, pretty safe. The Typhoon's a fighter jet. It requires a pilot, so we're putting a pilot in harm's way. It's quite a big shift, isn't it?
Yeah, it was interesting, wasn't it? The US had predominantly used Tomahawk cruise missiles for the attacks against the Houthi military targets. So I was intrigued to know why the UK involvement wasn't something similar, right? Why would it put Typhoons in, which generally have to fly into enemy territory and fly over or very close to the target, which obviously puts them in harm's way. So why would you do that? Part of the reason lies in the fact that the US and the UK, under political direction, were really clear that they want to minimise the number of casualties. So they would have looked at a series of targets over many days to work out where the radars are, where the missile sites are, where the command and control nodes are. But they'd also done pattern of life, how many people come and go, because they clearly would want to minimise the number of people who were killed during the attack. Now, that's one of the reasons they attacked at night, because people are generally at home in their beds. The problem with the cruise missiles is once you launch them, they're largely fire and forget, so they can take some time to reach their target. If they're launched from 200 or 300 miles away, they're going to take at least 30 minutes to get to their target. And of course, the ground situation can change during that time. Now, if you are attacking targets where there is the greater potential for people to be coming or going, then you want a shorter time of flight for the weapon. So by putting an aircraft over the target with its sensor looking down at the target area, it gives you real-time information about whether there's anybody on the ground that happens to have turned up, or there are people nearby, that you can delay the launch of your bomb until such time as you're comfortable that the threat is gone. And that's one of the reasons they use the Paveway IV guided munition, because that will have had the ability for the targeting pod on the Typhoon to lock on to its intended target. Once it's guaranteed that's the target, it'll often fire a laser then with a distinctive code on it, because each of the bombs will have had a different code in the nose of the guidance system, and that means that you can actually hit 3 or 4 targets at the same time, launch these bombs off, the laser is pointing with different codes at different targets, and then in they go. And even last minute, even with a few seconds time of flight, if somebody comes out of that building, or several people do, you can walk the laser spot off the target into a clear area and therefore protect that target. So it's a much more responsive way of targeting. So that seems to be the reason why they've done that. But it was a fantastic show of professionalism because the headlines are all about one aircraft delivering a bomb. Those aircraft are based in Cyprus. There's hundreds of people there with support people. When they knew about the tasking, when the British Typhoons knew about it, the squadron there would have been firing on all cylinders. There'd be weapons instructors trying to match the weapons to the targets. There would have been armourers building the weapons, getting them onto the aircraft. There'll be guys servicing the aircraft, getting the spares, getting the software loaded up with the threat scenarios. A real team effort. And then, of course, for the planners, it's not a simple. This was a 3,500 mile round trip for those jets. They needed air-to-air refuelling, so you needed Voyager aircraft. Where are they going to be based? Where are they going to be? Where are you going to intercept them? The target's got to be hit at a certain time, coordinated with all the other strikes. So you've got to work backwards from that time. When do I need to fill up with fuel? On where? When do I need to take off? When do I need to brief, get loaded up with my kit and everything? It's an incredibly complex sequence. And for the pilots themselves, walking out, you've done so much training, but when you walk out to a jet, and trust me, having done it, you walk out and this jet is laden with bombs, and there's lots of red labels hanging off them with pins that as you pull them out, that now a weapon is ready to go. When it gets into the air, it's more sluggish getting off the ground because it's a lot heavier, it's less aerodynamic. And all of a sudden, when you're making the switches live in the cockpit, there's a real surge of adrenaline and responsibility because there's death and destruction in those bombs. You need to make sure that they're very carefully targeted and professionally handled, and you're worried about getting shot down over the target area. So huge team effort, incredibly proud of the British military professionalism and courage and teamwork that was demonstrated on that night.